Well, it's a real pleasure for me to welcome our first guest to Local Image. Author Jim Bruton has been a guest before, and now he's back on the program with his good friend who just happens to be Minnesota hockey legend Lou Nanne. Together, they've co-authored a book called A Passion to Win. It's Lou's autobiography, and it's full of some great memories and some tough ones too. But before we talk about the book, I want to remind our viewers just why Lou is so revered by so many here in Minnesota and beyond. I'm going to read from the cover, inside cover of your book, just to give people a reminder. They call him Sweet Lou from the Sioux, and Lou Nanne is the most recognized name in Minnesota hockey. He played 11 seasons for the Minnesota North Stars, was the only defenseman to lead the Western Collegiate Hockey Association in scoring, and was the captain of the University of Minnesota's Golden Gophers and the 1968 U.S. Olympic team. And he's transferred that success today into the finance world, and I'm so pleased to have you both. Welcome to the show.
Our pleasure, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's just a little list of all the accomplishments you've had in your career, and I have to tell you that when I got the book just yesterday, I thought, oh, I'm just going to have time to skim through this. I'm going to just have to rush through this, and I found myself glued to the pages. I was reading page after page after page. You are such an interesting man, Lou, and I'm not surprised why you wanted to write a book about him or co-author this book. But I want to know, how did you guys come together? Because you weren't always friends with each other, right? How did that happen?
Well, I knew that Lou had put out a fantastic book a few years ago on the Minnesota North Stars, and I had looked through that book and thought it was just terrific. But there wasn't a lot in the book about Lou's history and where he grew up and everything. And so I just was thinking one day, this would be fascinating to do something just about Lou and his history and connect it to the North Stars, but make it more about his autobiography. So I talked to him, and we kind of
Did you just call him up? Or
I called his assistant first and asked her to run the idea by him, and she did. We got together, and we just kind of hit it off. It kind of flowed from there, and we've had really a good time with it.
What did you think of that phone call? Were you hesitant, or?
Yeah, I'm always hesitant when it comes to doing a book, and I had, over the years, had a number of people come to me about doing the book, and it probably was about the 50th person by the time I finally did the history and memory of the North Stars with Bob Showers, and I was very surprised by the success of it. He came with this idea about an autobiography, but also combining athletics and business, and why it would be interesting to some people that he thought. And I said, well, is anybody going to read this? And will they look at it? And he said, yeah, we've got to do this. So he convinced me to do it, and I said, fine.
With you, Lou, what comes through, obviously, A Passion to Win is the title. It is all about the win. That's been the biggest part of your life since you were just a little kid. It's in you, right?
That's exactly right, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the book, too. There are some characteristics that I have that I know many people have, right. And some of them are idiosyncrasies, some are different, and like having OCD and how people handle it and how they might look at it and how they might be more comfortable with it. So there were things in the book and the autobiography that people might be interested and also maybe beneficial or benefit by it, by reading it. And I know I've had some people come to me at our signings and tell me how happy they were that I was able to discuss that in the book. So there are things in there. There are things about my life and my relationship with my parents, and why I treasure that, and why it might be valuable to some parents to look at their kids and their kids in this light when they're embarking on an athletic career. Right. And some of the things that were important to me that they might miss for their kids. So there are a number of things that we thought that we could put in there would really gather a wider range of audience than we even had with the initial North Star book.
And I think that's exactly what did it for me as a reader. It's like, this is some real stuff, some really challenging things that you've been through in your life. And you mentioned the OCD, and that intrigued me immensely, because I had no idea that this was something that you had struggled with. And what was really interesting to me was the way that you found out about what you had. You knew you had some superstitions and rituals, which a lot of sports people tend to have. But tell folks how you came to find that out, what you had.
Well, when I was playing and managing, they had done a number of stories on me because I had so many different superstitions, and that's what many people, especially athletes, people read and hear about their superstitions or idiosyncrasies. And Oprah Winfrey's got a clipping service throughout the country. And one year they were doing a show about superstitions. And they called me up and asked me to go on the show. And there were 5 people on the show that day. And I was sitting in the green room with the basketball woman. We were watching the other 3 go out there, and they were discussing their superstitions, which really were OCD tendencies. And I looked at the basketball coach. I said, "That's us." And she said, "No, I'm not like that." I said, "You wouldn't be here if it wasn't." So that was it.
When you found that out, when you made that realization for the first time, was that a relief, or did that really trouble you even more?
It didn't bother me at all, because I'm comfortable in what I am and who I am. And if I have something that I think's got to change or be handled, I try and do it. So what I did is, when I came back, I went to see a psychologist and asked, if there was something I could do. Well, they gave me some pills because the OCD is a chemical imbalance, and he said you could take these pills and that
helped
can help
for a
you.
little while.
It helped me, but it was just the fact that I was taking pills to do a job. After 6 months, I got frustrated. I said, "This is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to take a pill to do a job. I'll just have to combat it myself." And so I quit taking the pills.
So how are you doing today with that?
Well, as I say in the book, I told my wife I reserve the right to revert. So I know I have it, and it affects me. And if I get to a sales presentation that I know, who my competition is, and if I've been against them before, and what I did that made our company win the award, I'll try and do the same things. I'll try and remember what was in place when I was successful on a business call, for instance, or the things I did. Now, not that really is the reason why you're successful. What that does is just calm your mind down, make you feel that everything else is right. Now just go ahead and do your job, and you got a chance to get the business.
There's so much already in this book, but I imagine there was a lot you had to, decide on what to put in, what to not put in. How did that collaboration work?
I just want to make one other comment about that chapter. And I've done a few books now in the past, but I have never been involved in anything like that particular chapter on the OCD. First of all, I was amazed and very proud of Louis for the reality that he was willing to share that. Most people wouldn't do that. And I have had, like he has had, I just got a call this morning from a friend of mine in Chicago that I'd sent the book to, and he called me and told me he loved the book. But the first thing he talked about is, he says, "I love that chapter on obsessive compulsive personality," because people don't read about that in books. It's not something that a lot of people share, and so I think it was a wonderful thing that he put it in there, and I think it will help a lot of people who read it.
You mentioned, family several times already, and I know that's at the top of your list of the most important things in life, which it should be. And your wife has been such a big support for you and your family, and she obviously has put up with a lot. I know one of your twin boys had an accident many years ago, and it cost him his leg, a motorcycle accident, and he went on to flourish, but he is suffering now from a brain tumor, and I just want to know how he's doing.
Well, he's doing very well. He's a dentist. In fact, he's one of the Wild Team dentists, and he's going through radiation and chemo. He's finished the radiation, does chemo now, 5 days on, 23 off. And he's had 4 MRIs, and it's clear, and we just got to hope and pray it stays away for a long, long time.
Is that another example of kind of, let's put this in there because other people have dealt with similar situations?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the word in the title that describes the whole thing that we did is passion. I mean, one of my favorite times was that we described a chapter on disappointments, and one of them was some of the incredible losses that the North Stars took. And I remember asking Lou over this one loss, which was like 30-some years ago. I said, how long did it take you to get over it? And I actually saw his face get red, and he kind of leaned forward and said, I'm still not over it.
Let's not talk about it right
so
now.
I said, well, okay, I won't bring it up again.
Who's calm? We got to keep him calm right now. But speaking of passion, one of your passions is commentating at the Minnesota State High School hockey games. And I mean, it's such a great experience. Why are you so still passionate about that? And I know your son played and won, and your grandson played and won the tournament. How exciting for you.
Well, it's really a unique situation for not only the players, but I think for the whole community, the whole state. There just aren't tournaments like this anywhere in the world. And to watch the kids come, and anytime you get in a one-game situation, anything can happen. Look at, that's why we won the 1980 Olympics. We played them, the Russians, another 99 times. Most of us in hockey would bet that they would lose all 99 games.
Right.
And when these kids go to the state tournament, you never know who's going to win. And they come from all different parts of the state. This is the highlight of their career, and in many, many cases will be the highlight of their life. In fact, people that have gone on to play in the Olympics, play at the university, play in professional hockey, still rank the state high school tournament up there with their highest thrills of their whole life. And so I get to experience it with them. I get to see their passion for the game. I get to see their desire. I mean, it's really something to go down around the locker rooms before the game, after the game, to see the kind of feelings that in passion these kids have to play, and the coaches. So I just get to do it, you know, a few days a year, but that few days really has been just to me a tremendous amount of enjoyment, and I can't tell you how many memories I get because of it.
You know, there is so much in this book, and towards the end of the book you talk about your current career in finance, and obviously you've carried a lot of your you know, the way you operate into being successful in that career. But I did appreciate how you put, you know, some tips in there for folks, and just some of your thoughts on what it takes, and really I think you said it earlier in the book, as far as, you know, you always have to work harder than the next guy. Is that one of the big keys, you think? I
think that's the biggest key for anybody. If you know you're going out there and working as hard as you can, you're going to be happy with yourself. Because I have a motto, and one of the things that I believe is always be underpaid. And that means that go there with giving them the kind of effort where people think you're not gypping them, and you know you're really earning your money. And I try to always be underpaid. And I tell people that you know, just if you look at athletics and if you look at work, the one thing that you can see immediately, it doesn't matter if you have a professional eye to judge talent or not, you could see if somebody's giving you effort or not. Exactly. And so the underlying fact to start with in both athletics and business is make sure you earn your money, make sure you work hard. Okay, and now if you had to pick, of all the successes that you've had, the achievements, the awards, just one that you would rest your laurels on, and I know you would never do that, but which one would it have to be? Which one is just so dear? It has to be my family. Okay, besides the family, that's an easy one. I thought he was working with me, Lou. That's an easy one. Well, he was getting there with Jim. But you know, I guess making a National Hockey League, because all your life, if you're a young boy or girl and you've played sports, you dream about getting to the top, but you never realize or think you could ever get to the top. And if you ever make it to the top, that's the time when you think, how could they be paying me to do something I would do for nothing? Yeah. So besides all the games and the, you know, the things we've won or the Stanley Cups we've participated in, I think the overall fact is just getting to the top of the profession. Awesome. Final comments from you, Jim, on the book itself? Well, one of the other reasons I think that I wanted to meet Lou was I remember my mother-in-law not too long before she died. She was had been very ill and whatever, but she was a absolute fanatic North Star fan, and she didn't always like the way Louis managed the team. And so one day she wrote him a letter, and he called her. And I mean, he had no connection to our family or anything, and I'd never forgotten that and what it meant to her, even though I think she chewed him out on the phone even. But he's used to that. Yeah, I've learned that that was not just a part of him, but as we do book signings,
It's such a pleasure to see the people who come up and say, I remember when I was 10 years old and you treated me this well, and you did, and it's really fun. And Louis is nice to everybody, even people who don't necessarily buy a book if they want a picture or anything. And he's so gracious, and it's just a real pleasure to work with him.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you both here, and that book is incredibly awesome. I really enjoyed it. I read the whole darn thing. I was like, I couldn't put it down. But thank you so much for being on the program. It's a great pleasure.
Judy.
Nice to see you again, Jim, and best wishes with the book and everything else that you do in your career. Mr. Success here, you know, and you too, Jim. Thanks for being here. Well.